We talk a lot about sales, but we don't talk enough about being a girl. And I could not be more thrilled, more proud to have our next guest here on the podcast, Miss Florencia Moynihan. She is the Catholic Nutritionist, and she is one of our clients, and we just had a VIP day session with her. And I am not exaggerating when I say this. There is I can't really think of a person that has changed my life as quickly and as intensely as Florencia has today. Genuinely. She has turned my life and my brain upside down, legitimately teaching me about how to be a girl, how to be a woman. I cannot believe how much I didn't know. I cannot believe how much there is to know. And I genuinely cannot believe how, when you know what there is to know, how much more powerful you can be.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for her to drop the goods for you. Welcome, Flo.
Thank you. Let's drop some bombs.
Let's drop
Let's
them.
go.
Okay. So you're the Catholic
Mhm.
nutritionist, but you don't necessarily work with only Catholics.
No.
You just are the Catholic nutritionist. So tell me about how those two things really go together and why that's even important.
Yeah. I've had some people kind of tilt their head. The Catholics are like, "Oh, I get it."
Yeah.
And the ones that aren't are like, "Oh, you're like really excited about your religion." Huh? The reason that I think it's so important, and actually this wasn't originally what my business name was, and
Okay.
it was a pivot because that was already what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
Like I cannot help but mention the Lord, and like part of having your own business is like the freedom to be like, I can do what I want, how I want, you know?
Mm.
And the thought of like it would be disingenuous for me not to be like literally everything. Your health only matters. Let's say that. Your health only matters, I think, in the light of the gospel. That's the only way it makes sense. So I can't communicate to you unless I bring up certain things and just like the truths of your human life.
Talk more about that.
About how it is
So
essential.
Your health only matters. What did you say exactly?
In light of the gospel.
Wow.
Because otherwise, what's the point? And this is what we see, like a lot of our culture right now is this kind of like, what's the point?
Totally.
Right? We're all going to die anyways.
Yep.
I'm just like, because some stars collided and like some amoeba multiplied, it's like, that's why I exist. It's like, no, there is like nothing accidental, random, or inconsequential about you. Like you were designed, you were like made and handcrafted by our good Lord, like a God who loves you, a God who calls himself like your father, who has like adopted you. Like that's the gospel. And so it's like, oh my gosh, like everything about me matters and everything about the way that I live matters. And then eternity, like we're living in light of eternity.
Wow. And that is really like the premise of, like, it's like the umbrella is like, you were made good.
Yeah.
And, when I first heard that, I'm like, oh yeah, like, of course.
Cute.
Yeah. But your perception in depth behind you were made good, it has been like almost like a knife in my heart in a good way of making it like, did I not think that? Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is the core belief that is missing in women, and that would break apart so many of the chains that women are living in. There are so women that feel like they are living at war with their body, right? And the fruits of that, like what we see is like self-loathing, disordered eating, like punishing yourself, this like hatred, or like doing, or even just this, like, it just is what it is. Like I tolerate myself, I tolerate my body, and let's not even like touch the like point of like loving and honoring it. But it's like, how can you ever get there without like believing that you were made, right, created by a good God that has good plans for you, and like good. And I feel like the English language does not even capture the word good enough, but like think about like pure goodness. Like there is like beauty in it. There's like, think about like a baby. Like you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh. And like,
So
that's
perfect.
Literally how the Lord looks at you. That's why I joke that I'm like, I swear, like I'm God's favorite daughter. Like, and
say more about that.
Like you are too, everyone. But like the way that has shifted the way that I live my life. And I've had people be like, that's not theologically accurate. And I'm like, it's a joke. But like the reason that I could even joke like that, like I joke like that with my uncle too. And like, you can only make, or like maybe you've had a teacher that you really loved and you're like, I'm your favorite student, right? Totally. You know?
And they're like, yeah, of course you are.
You can only do that if you trust that, if there's some kind of relationship there that you trust that they do love you. Otherwise, if you made that joke and they're like, haha, like you would be so humiliated. Like you
Totally.
reserve that language and that level of like confidence and trust
So
when
good.
you know that you're like received and loved.
Wow.
So yeah, the belief that you were made good, I truly, truly believe is the defining belief that will shift the way that you go about your life and that you like transform your health.
And being in business, like our obsession has to be of other people,
Yeah.
solving their problems and really loving other people. And a book you've recommended to us, and I've already started listening to it, and 7 minutes in, I'm like, what's the name of it again?
Litanies of the Heart.
Litanies of the Heart. He's saying, love your neighbor as yourself, but the key is you have to love yourself, because how you love yourself is a reflection of how you love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I have not even really thought about it that way. And of course, people think of like self-care as a bubble bath, and the way you've been talking about like tolerating your body and tolerating yourself is quite literally the opposite of loving yourself. And if you're tolerating yourself, are you tolerating other people? Like, are you projecting that toleration, and how like the way that affects your business is insane.
Yeah. How about as women, are you tolerating being a woman?
Oh, yeah. Talk about that.
Or is it something that you like embrace and you like, it is a gift, it is a privilege that I was like born a woman, that the Lord decided that I needed to be a woman. And so often I think women feel like they're cursed, that their femininity is a burden. And when specifically, it's like my cycle is a burden. Like it ruins my life, it impacts my day, like all that kind of stuff. I
totally feel that way.
And it's like, what if there was a way that you didn't dread your life every single month? Like, what if there was a way that actually became a signal to you? Oh, one thing that's really interesting is think about it as like also a preparation phase. Like nothing that the Lord does is accidental. So think about your period. A lot of women struggle in postpartum, especially like high achieving women, because the thought of having to stay in bed is excruciating. Right? But we have this rule. I'm a trained doula too. So I was like,
what?
I forgot to tell you that. Yeah. So we have these rules of like in the bed, on the bed, near the bed. Wow. Those first 3 weeks. Like that's your bubble, like you can expand it that much. Yes. But we need that rest because otherwise you really do have like consequences that will come, right? You cannot push the postpartum body, and like the feminine body will not accept being pushed to no end. Like it'll push back. And that's why we always say like, listen to your body whisper so it doesn't have to scream. Ooh. So one of those whispers that you can start to learn is your period. Take that as a sign to like take a beat. Take that as your training to be like, oh yeah, once a month, I like slow things down. Once a month, I learn how to rest. And then when someone gets into postpartum, it's not this foreign concept of I've been running like full speed on a treadmill for 15 years. It's like, yes, I'm familiar with this. I know how to ebb and flow. I know how to like pull back and when to hit the gas.
Okay. So high achieving women, you're speaking to high achieving women here. Yeah. Who the last thing we want to be told is to slow down. Yeah. Not to mention, a lot of our calendars are like booked for a few months, you know, and there's like in no universe that I could see a week of my period and be like, I got to cancel this.
No.
So,
me neither.
So
me neither.
talk more about when you're like, slow down, like to the high achieving woman who has a business and also desires to work with their body. How is that even like a mentality to have?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't like being told what to do either.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear about that. So like,
period.
You need to choose. I want you to have the freedom to choose it.
Yes.
I want you to know that like, and that's also the beauty of knowing how to sell is that you can choose when to hit the gas and when to like pull off a little bit, because like you have a business that you can trust and that runs without you like being on the computer all day. Like that's what a healthy, thriving business is.
That's so true.
So the same way that with your business, you're like, I should be able to go on vacation. I better be going on vacation.
That's right.
Like if I'm going on an entrepreneur and I'm building my business and like I'm slaving away more than I would if I was like working for someone else, like we're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want you to like know how to choose and be able to, if you want. But I've noticed women, high achieving women in particular, like let's just check your heart, check your mind, and that you have an understanding of your body that's good enough that you can respond to its needs. How about that? Like just think about, I'm not going to tell you when to rest, but like I want you to have the skills to know how to read your body and how to respond appropriately.
So good. Like
what does it need? Oh, great. I know how to do that. You
know? One thing that has been really interesting. Okay. So I told Flo that, I have almost is this a podcast episode or is it therapy? We're not really sure. But for a long time, And still probably a little bit, I've resisted just the identity of a woman.
Mm.
Because I just don't want people to either work with me or not work with me because I'm a woman. In fact, when we were naming the business originally, I was like, stay away from feminine things altogether. I want it to be just like hire me because I'm good, right?
Neutral.
Not
Yeah.
neutral,
Hmm.
100%, right? And I was telling you how I feel like intellectually, like lovingly and nurturing, I was like totally raised by my mom, but intellectually, I was raised by my dad. By like helping me think about like ideology and how to think about myself and how to
Hmm.
think about like business. And
Hmm.
ever since I was a little girl, I mean, he would take me to school and we would be talking about the world and lives and philosophy, And the way that you're talking about feminine rhythms, I'm like, I have heard that, but I resist it because it feels so soft.
I was
Rhythm,
gonna say, I'm gonna
rhythms feel so
guess
soft. Yeah,
you have a big issue with weakness.
totally.
Or
Like
being pitied, or like being perceived as weak is probably something that's like excruciating for you.
I am just not weak.
Yeah, you're like, I know
There's
I'm
no
not.
way. Like, there's
No one
no,
would ever think that.
like,
Yeah.
I have this belief that like I do well under pressure.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
actually really do well under
Yeah.
pressure. And all of the sports that I did growing
Yeah.
up and like do it for the team, don't do
Yeah.
it for yourself, like all of that stuff. And so I cannot believe how much I don't understand femininity, rhythms, and how rhythms aren't soft. What?
Yeah. 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 Let's break down feminine rhythms real
Yeah,
quick. Like
please.
one of the main things
Yeah.
that I teach my clients is that you have these two rhythms, these two
Okay.
like heartbeats to your
Yeah.
life. Think about it that way. The first is your circadian rhythm,
Yeah.
right? That's that daily 24-hour-ish cycle.
Yeah.
Sleep wake cycles, like rest and digest, all that kind of stuff. Then you have that monthly-ish rhythm of
Mm-hmm.
your cycle, your
Yeah.
menstrual cycle. These two heartbeats. Men technically like run off of just one.
Yeah.
You have this like whole second layer. And this is where like you're not this like complicated, confusing, like eighth world wonder, like sometimes it feels like
I
feminine health
feel
is
that way sometimes.
yes, and it can
Yeah.
feel like it's a burden.
Yeah.
Right? But you're not cursed by
Yeah.
being a woman. Like I
Right.
want you to literally see that this is like your superpower. This is like two layers.
Yeah.
Like you being different day 1 of the month compared to day 22, hormonally speaking, like
Yeah.
that's where like your gifting lies.
Wow.
Like you have certain gifting at different times of the month. And like the feminine heart, even all like your softness is what is like a greatest strength. Like that tenderness that a woman's heart has, like the beauty of like the feminine genius
Yeah.
of it being like the way that we can enter into a room and like know exactly what it needs.
Yes.
Right? Like one of those examples that we have in scripture
Yeah. Tell me.
is of Mary, right? Jesus' mom is at the wedding feast of Cana and she rolls on in. She just rolls right up to her son and she goes, hey, they're out of wine. Like, first of all, she doesn't come in and strong arm him.
Yeah.
She doesn't command that he do something.
Right.
She brings a need to his attention.
Wow.
Like that, I think is one of the most exceptional images of the feminine heart in scripture. Like, do you not do the same thing when you enter a room? Like, do you not, okay, is everyone taken care of? What is there a need? Like, how can I help? How can we make this better? Like, there's this beauty of like wanting to nurture and take care of. And so she brings that need to him. And what does he respond? He's like, it's not my time yet. Like, you're right. But he's not like saying like woman, whatever. He's just
Right.
mom. Like no
Right.
one loved Mary more than Jesus.
Right.
But she like leaves it there. And what we can really learn from that is like what it looks like to have expectant faith.
Ooh.
To like expect that God will do something when we bring a need. And like if you are on a healing journey, if you are like struggling with your health, if you are like drowning in your symptoms, to be able to like have that expectant faith again and be like, I believe that if I bring a need, like God wants to heal me. So it's in freedom that I can like go off and learn things and like transform my life and like invest into my health because I believe that like good things happen when I take action and that he's going to be there with me.
Okay, let's go back to feminine.
Yeah.
I want you to just like compare men and women for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So an easy way to imagine the feminine and the masculine, right? We have these two natures.
Yeah.
And we are like equal and good, like equal and good, equally dignified, but there's so much difference. And that's where there's like the complementarity of the sexes.
Yes.
We are like, we match up, we're like puzzle pieces.
Yes, you're like, we're not genderless for like none of us are genderless.
No,
Like
no.
there's a purpose behind
Which is
that.
like a shocker to say
Yeah,
these days, but
yeah.
it's like we need both.
Right.
Like the beauty of the two sexes together, like
So good.
the harmony that comes when they come together, it's stunning. And so like you can think about the masculine as like the cliffs on the shore, right? This like steady, strong, there's this hardness to it. Like even if you think about the masculine body,
Yeah.
right? There's that muscle, there's this hardness to it. And then you think about the feminine as the waves,
Yeah.
right? It
Ooh.
ebbs and it flows. It's also kind of chaotic, right? It's
That part.
intense, you know, like, but there's like a certain softness to it.
Yes.
And like, yeah, water is just water, but like if it keeps hitting those rocks, this is where we have like whole caves form, right? There is a
Wow.
strength in that softness.
Yes. Ooh, okay, yeah. And like the waves come from currents.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, and the moon.
And the moon.
The
Okay,
tides.
which
Mhm.
those all play part in the feminine rhythm. Well, currents, the moon plays part in the
Yeah,
feminine rhythms.
yeah. Like your menstrual
But it's
cycle
been so
matches.
cool to hear you talk about the power of a current.
Yeah.
And how a current is a type of a rhythm that has like a consistent beat or flow to it,
Yeah.
I guess I should say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There's a predictability
Mm-hmm.
with rhythm.
Yeah.
There's something that, right, if you are standing on the beach
Yeah.
and the waves pull out, you're expecting them to come back.
Ooh, so good.
Like, you know that it's just going to be like this until the end of time. Or if it pulls back far enough, something's wrong and it's a tsunami, right?
Wow.
Like if the rhythm pulls back far enough, if something is off, like even with your cycle or something, or you're not sleeping anymore, like take that as a warning sign and like head up to higher ground, because like your body's trying to communicate with you that something's going on.
Yes. And I love how we talked about earlier how like rhythms, like when you get your first ultrasound,
Yeah.
the doctor says it's a strong heartbeat.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
that's
strong heartbeat.
all
It's
you
strong.
want to hear.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
Yeah.
And what's been cool is learning, because I have such a story of like, that's not who I am. Like I love like being intentional, and I love setting structure for myself, and I love setting these rules. And feminine, going with the flow, waves feels chaotic and feels like there's no structure at all. And I'm like, that's not me. And what's been cool is hearing you explain that, everyone has a natural pace
Yeah.
that they typically go in, just like a heartbeat. It's the same pace, it's just a faster heartbeat.
Yeah.
And everybody is so individualistic and so individualized, and they need kind of a custom protocol to really leverage their feminine rhythms so that they are stronger.
Yeah.
Not so that they're weaker, but so they're stronger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. To have that optimal health.
Yes.
The longevity. Like if you are an
Longevity.
entrepreneur that's on a mission,
Yes.
you probably are thinking 5, 10, 15, 30 years in the future. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
have this vision
Yeah.
for your life and your business and your mission and how it's going to like change the world.
Yes.
Right? So let's make sure that you
So
know
good.
how to get there.
And what I've learned, gosh, you see on like I have obviously like mother-in-laws and moms who are a
Yeah.
little bit older,
Yeah.
right? And they'll say things like, "Oh, Macy, when you're 40,
Yeah.
like make sure you get stuff checked. Get your hormones checked, get your whatever." It's like that 40-year-old mark, And I something about the number 40, it's like, oh, that's when I'll need to get things in check.
Yeah.
And what you've opened my eyes to is, oh, 40 is going to be a reflection of everything you've done today.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because it's like that generation,
Yeah.
like you've talked so much about so I want you to hear you talk about that, but like their generation has possibly caught up to them at 40 because of how women were taught, really.
Yeah. Like it's, I don't know, a house that is untouched for 40 years.
Yeah.
The paint is peeling off.
Yeah.
The roof has already caved in.
Yeah.
Like it falls apart. Like, also just like the feminine heart needs attention. You know what I'm saying?
Period.
Like,
Yeah.
does it not?
Yeah.
And the feminine body, like
Yeah.
you cannot just tune out, lock out and be like, I'll check in on you in 20 years. Like you're going to be faced with a
Abandonment.
lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And you're going to be overwhelmed with what you find.
Yeah. Talk about like those generational
Yeah.
themes
Yeah.
of women.
The like beauty of family is that things get passed down.
Yeah.
The pain of family is that things get passed down.
Yeah. And they're not questioned
No.
once they get passed down.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. And you believe it to be true because that's just how we've done things.
Yeah.
Right. This is also something where we see we're like, oh, well, all the women in my family struggle with their weight. All the women in my family have thyroid issues.
It's in my genes. Yep.
And I'm like, is it your genes? Because what we always say is like genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So like,
yeah.
what were you guys doing at home?
Yes.
And I'll be like, tell me about how you guys ate. And then it's like, oh, well, we always like stop for fast food after work
Yep.
and like on the way home from practice, like all these different things. And it's
Yep.
like, Is it that you guys are all living in the same environment maybe and like recreating the same habits and you've never been taught otherwise, which is not your fault. Like, I think that there can be so much shame. I think most women do care about their health, and there can be so much shame and overwhelm when they start to learn it. And it's like, I feel bad that I like didn't, I feel stupid. Like
Yeah.
I was treating my body poorly, and it's like, hey, it is not your fault
Yeah.
if you were not taught things.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot, you can change the trajectory
Yeah.
of your entire family tree if
Wow.
you decide, like, I'm going to take that pain point and like really let it become like the greatest point of glory and like break these generational chains. And I'm going to be the one that brings this back. Like, even how like in modern times, like girls our age are like learning how to make sourdough again for the first time. We have like these lost arts
Yeah.
that it's like things that were obvious before, like you didn't have to
Totally.
learn it. You just like were doing it all the
Yeah.
time. It's the same thing with our bodies.
Wow.
Like, there's so many things that have not become obvious anymore, and the attack that has been unleashed on women in the last few decades and generations, we're watching it. But why do you think like the rates of eating disorders are so high? Why do you think like everyone and their mother is on birth control because they're in excruciating pain
Wow.
every single month and can't function? Like, why do you think that that would be happening? Like,
Yeah.
there's this attack, and it starts with the mind.
Yeah. So I want to talk about like the way you're like, you haven't learned. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
So this is kind of how I think about communication.
Yeah.
Because everyone learns how to talk. We all learn English.
Yeah.
But as you know, people don't know how to put their words together in a way that really influences people.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to communicate, even though you're like, I learned this when I was, 2 or 3 years old. And when I hear you say, when I first would hear you say, like, you haven't learned, I'm like, what are you talking about? I haven't learned. Like, I know, like, what are you talking about? And now after spending time with you, I'm like, oh, there is a learning to being feminine specifically. And I know, like, we gave the example of, like, breastfeeding. Whenever I was breastfeeding my second, I had a lactation consultant both times. And I thought for sure after I did the first one, I wouldn't need a second one because I knew everything, right?
The baby's
And then
different.
baby's different
Mhm.
and I'm different.
Yeah.
And when she came, I was so frustrated. I just looked at her. I'm like, why don't I know this? Like, this is so frustrating. And you don't know it. You don't know that you don't know it until you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she said, well, the generation before you, it was actually, if you breastfed, you were seen as poor because you couldn't afford formula. So it was embarrassing for women to breastfeed, so they would do it in secret. And so growing up, kids weren't able to watch their mom, like little girls weren't able to watch their mom, so that they would just be accustomed to it and it feel really normal. And so now it's like this whole thing that's like, oh, it's so like in private, don't do,
Yeah.
secret, hush, hush.
Yeah.
And like that example plus this feminine rhythms things, I'm like, wait a minute, why is this so hidden?
Yeah.
Why is this feminine rhythms and cycles and all of that, which I want to talk about that in
Yeah.
just a second, why does it almost feel hidden?
Yeah. I think it's diabolical.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's straight up like the devil goes hard. And all this,
Yeah.
like, Eve was the first one that he went for.
Yeah.
He like
Talk
knew that
about
it would
that.
work. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, if we go back to the garden, like the devil doesn't change that much. Like, he's running the same playbook throughout all of time. Sneaky, but he also does it in our face. And if you study it, you can actually become like equipped to handle it. That's like the whole point of like being prepared for spiritual warfare and like knowing how to battle it. Is that like his methods don't change. And that's also what like the importance of women being around women and saying something out loud.
Wow.
You're like, I'm the only one that struggles with this. I'm the only one who thinks this thought. Like, I'm the only one who has this insecurity. And you say it out loud and like everyone else in the room is like, same. Like, it is so critical for you to be in the right room of women who like want to understand it, but also who can like speak out and be like, no, same. And so when this kind of stuff is hidden, we have to think like, well, who would profit from it? Who would profit from women not breastfeeding and thinking it's disgusting or cheap, poor, or like unnatural? Who could is there like a whole industry that like could do really well from that? And like, who would profit from women not knowing how to give birth anymore and thinking that like it has to be a whole medical intervention thing? Who could that be? When it's like the most natural thing that your feminine body does. But it's like this constant erosion of like the way that God made you wasn't good enough. Like, let's come in and rescue with you the solution. And the solution always ends up being worse. Like, if you think about birth control, it's like if I like a teenager will go in and be like, I have really bad acne, and they go, great news, we can get you on birth control today. One, it's a Band-Aid. you're not addressing the root.
Mm.
Okay. So the minute that she goes, a lot of my clients will be like, I did not feel like myself on birth control. I
yeah.
was so depressed, right?
Yeah.
Like I was so weepy. I was so upset. And so I got off. And guess what? Now my mood is even worse. And then the acne's back with a vengeance. Like there are repercussions to like unjust solutions. And like, again, like, let's go back to the head of it. Like, what does it matter? Like your mind, like going back up and being like, my intellect, my brain is the most powerful and expensive thing that I have. And there's like a lot of things that we can't, you're being lied to at every turn, right? Have you ever been to the doctor's office and you're like, I don't trust a word that you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You're like, I don't trust you. So I'm like, honestly, same. So let's get you back in the driver's seat and make sure that your brain is so well equipped that you can handle and you can advocate for yourself in any situation.
Wow. So let's go back to the garden.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite place.
Yeah. I want to hear about Satan and Eve.
Yeah.
And food.
Yeah.
And how that is really manifesting today.
Yeah. Food isn't the problem. Okay. In the garden and now, food wasn't the issue. It's not about the food. Like the food is a vessel.
Okay.
So I work with a lot of women that have struggled with like disordered eating because that has been a huge piece of my story.
Yeah.
Of like restricting my food, under eating, like binge cycles, all that kind of stuff. It was never about the food though. There was like something else going on in my heart. There was like something else that it was a need for control.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times with our food, it's something that we try to control. So when we go back to the garden, like, yeah, the vessel of temptation was the apple, but like it wasn't food that he was trying to tempt her with. Cause then he would have said like, look how juicy it is. Look how red it is. Look how good it's going to taste. But what he says instead is like, did God really say that? Right. He starts like trying to sow these seeds of distrust in our Lord. In Eve's heart. And then she's like, well, no, she even said, she like doubles down and she expands. And she says something that God didn't even say. If you go a few verses back, she adds on things. I think she says like, and you'll die. I should pull this one out. She adds things that God didn't say in the first place.
That's right.
There's that distrust that then kind of spirals.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't trust him and I'm going to take it right. And so I should have that knowledge.
Wow.
Like he's trying to hold something back from me.
Yeah.
And like, God is never, ever, ever trying to keep things from you.
Wow.
Like there is nothing, like the same way that he talks to the older son, right? We have the prodigal son and this son like goes like, give me my inheritance, which is the equivalent of being like, Dad, I wish you were dead and give me my money.
That's right.
He leaves and he lives this life of like chaos and disorder and sin. And then he ends up having to come back because he's like starving. And then we have the older son who never left, like sees this party and this feast and he goes out and the father comes out to get him and he's like, hey, what's wrong? And he's like, I stayed with you. There's this like injustice he feels. He's like, I've been here the whole time and I've never even had like anything to celebrate with my friends. And what does the father say? The father literally looks at him and he says like, everything I have is yours. Like, that's why I joke. That's why I joke that I'm God's favorite daughter, because it's like, and you are too, and everyone else is, because it's like this belief that I'm like, he holds nothing back from me. And like, everything is for me and he works for me and for my good. And that like changes the way you live in your body. That changes the way that you live in your business. And like the expectancy that you can have when you think like, no matter what, things are going to work out for me.
Like today, I have been like this. Because I'm just like, it's so good. It's so good. Like, and just the way that you have talked about food has been fascinating to me. How it's a sacred, like it's being Catholic.
Yeah.
The Catholic religion, which I'm not Catholic, I'm a Christian. I don't have many Catholic like friends at all. And I've never met a Catholic who loves being a Catholic.
I love it.
It's always a second thought. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm Catholic.
They're like ashamed of it. They're embarrassed of it.
Yeah, or it's just a second thought. And that is your just genuine like passion.
Yeah.
And so Catholics think about food in a very specific way.
You can literally think about it as like a sacramental, aka like a sign of God's presence made real.
Oh,
right? Made
so
visible.
good.
Okay. The same thing with like baptism. It's like the water, it's like showing us what is happening. You're being washed of your sin, like all that kind of stuff. So food can be seen as this, like, literally a gift. It's a
Wow.
sign of God's love for you. It is a sign of God's providence. Like, he didn't have to make pizza
So
taste so good.
Yeah.
He didn't have to make chocolate taste so good. Like, that's him being like, I love you. Like, when you make food for your kids,
Yeah.
you probably do something that's like a whole recipe sometimes because you're
Yeah.
like, I love you. Do you love
Yeah,
it?
don't do it for me, but I'll do it for
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Because you like want them to enjoy it, and it's a special meal. And think about like your birthday meal that you got to pick every year as a kid. You're like, it's this special thing. And like, that's what food can be like. So of
Yes.
course, if it gets attacked and
Mm.
like 3 times a day, you're like now miserable and in shame and you feel awful and you feel mentally awful. And like, it becomes this, it's a battlefield
Yeah.
and you're at war every
Yeah.
meal versus if it's like, well, if God is good and he loves me and he made me good and this food is a sign of his love for me, like, there's no war anymore. Like, I don't have to constantly have like these demonized food groups. I don't have to constantly live in restriction. I don't have to be controlling my food all the time. Like, now it's a gift and we can kind of like pull back that emotion and to be like, what would be best? Like for you in this season that you're in, like what would be best for you to be eating? Amazing.
good.
You know, we like strip away the emotion
Yeah.
and the pain.
Yeah. Speaking of what you should be eating in your seasons, apparently there's a certain period of the month where you are
Hungrier.
hotter.
Oh, there's a certain period where you're hotter and there's a certain period where you're hungrier.
So you're telling me I can plan my branding photos for when I look the hottest?
Yeah.
What?
Write this down, ladies. Like, if you have, and you haven't, start paying attention to it. Like, if you're a woman with a menstrual cycle and not on birth control, pay attention to how you
Okay,
look.
does
throughout the month.
even if you have a period while on birth control?
It's a withdrawal bleed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So like you're going to be able to see those shifts more if you're in those phases. But you could even take a picture of yourself once a week, but you have probably noticed that there are some weeks that you look in the mirror and you're like,
oh,
stop everything now. Get me on camera.
Take a picture of me immediately.
You're like, I'm the hottest thing I've ever seen. Like I look like $1,000,000. And then like a week and a half later, you're like,
oh,
run. What is that? Like, why is that happening? It's real. And it's like your body, it's like wired to reproduce at that time of the month. And so the Lord's like, let me help you out. You know? But then like some women will feel really ashamed that they're like ravenous at some points. And it's like, oh my gosh, it must be a lack of discipline or what's wrong with me. Or like, I feel bad for being so hungry. And it's like your caloric needs like increase. Your need for protein increases before your period in your luteal phase. So it's like, you're not crazy. At the end of the day, I just want you to know, like, you're not crazy and your body's not broken. Like there's rhyme and reason behind every single thing that it does. And when you have that like roadmap in your brain, that's like the owner's manual, you're like, everything makes sense. And now it's fun. And that's what we say with selling. Where like selling becomes fun when you know how to do
understand it.
Yes.
Yes.
And the same thing with your body. You're like, oh, this is like fun now. This is a mystery that I want to solve.
Yeah. Do you want to know what I was told about my period?
As a kid?
When I was just like emotional and like probably had a bit of an attitude problem, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I was also, that time of month, the tone was, hey, like women all over the world like deal with this. Like you cannot make everyone else's life miserable. It was probably a teenage attitude problem, but it was it was attached to, it was like you can't turn everybody else's life upside down. You can't turn your life upside down because it's going to happen every single month. A quarter of your life, whatever that math ends up being. So you have to learn how to adjust with it, not change everything. And it's been cool to hear you talk about rhythms of how you don't change everything. You thread it all together, weave it all together. And you can change like the type of work that you do. Some people are listening to this and they're like, Macy, how have you functioned in your life without knowing this? I'm sure it's probably like common knowledge.
I don't think it's common knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just you.
Okay, good. Because I feel like I've been in the dark for so long, but I've just been so on mission and so on my assignment. And, I'm ravenous for information. And any information that does not feel like it aligns with my mission, I delete it,
throw it out,
distort it, and just say, that's nice for some people, but not for me. And I don't even just delete it. I like push it away because it feels like junk. It's junk that's like clogging up what actually matters. And so what's been interesting is you framing this for the most important thing I do for my mission is to know this information and work with it. So I need you just to like, for those of you who are in the boat with me, like break down the parts, the food, and then the activities that are best during those times.
Yeah. How about let's map out the seasons?
Okay. I like
the easiest way to learn this.
Those of you who have had their colors done, just Just
I want you to picture
this
your
all
wheel.
aligns. We're summer sisters. Let's go.
I want you to picture your wheel. Okay.
Picture your wheel, everybody.
And instead it's your cycle.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Noted.
Which is like your period is
Yeah.
the start of a new cycle.
Okay.
But people think that like your cycle is your period. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. I'm like,
The cycle is the whole 28
the whole
days.
28 days.
Yeah, I think that might be new information for
Your
me.
period is just like it acts like the start. It's the most visible part.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
It's like the annoying little sister that is like you can't not give her attention.
Yep.
But underneath the
Yeah.
waves, there is like all these other things going on.
Yeah.
The star of the show, like the point of your cycle isn't your period. The point is ovulation. All month, your body is
Whoa.
gearing up to reproduce.
What?
That's the only point. The period is the byproduct of not being
Wow.
pregnant. And of that being like, all right, let's start over. Let's shed the lining. Let's start over. But all month, and talk about like the generosity and like the maternity of the feminine heart, like your body is wired for that. And so
Yes.
all month, the only thing it's doing is preparing an egg to be released, to try and get pregnant, releasing that egg, seeing if you got pregnant, then sustaining. And when we're preparing that egg too, your body is like decorating the home.
So
It's
fun.
preparing the baby room. Right?
Oh, I love
So I
that.
want you to think of like you put up new curtains and cushions in the crib, and that's what it is when it's like thickening the lining of their uterine
I love
wall,
that analogy.
right?
It's
It's
so
like
good.
it's so tender because it like
Wow.
builds up like just in case we have a visitor coming to town, just in case we have a guest, like we're gonna make this plush and thick, right?
Yeah.
And then the egg is released, and that's ovulation. That is the star of the show. That
Yeah.
is the whole point. That's where you feel like $1,000,000. That's
Wow.
you should if you're healthy and
Yeah.
wonderful.
And that type of work should be like energizing work.
Yeah, this
like-
is probably where if you speak.
That's the best time.
If you can like get on stages at that point, if you're going to be doing videos and
Yeah.
podcasts and stuff like that,
Yeah.
this is where you're going to feel the most magnetic
Cool.
and be able to communicate it the best.
Wow.
Right?
So good.
So then egg is released and your body's like, maybe we're pregnant, maybe we're not.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just kind of sustaining your progesterone, your hormone
Yeah.
that would sustain a pregnancy. And then if it realizes we're not pregnant, it goes, hey guys,
Yeah.
we're good. Go ahead and shed that lining.
Yep.
So all that decoration that you put up, your body goes, let's take it down.
Yeah.
And that's your period.
Got it.
Okay. So then the easiest way to think about these phases, there's phases of your cycle, which you probably see on TikTok and Instagram
Yeah.
as like the what I'm like and like showing it compared to my husband.
It's like their face is like huge.
Yeah.
And one.
And you're like
And then it's
super
like-
flirty.
Yeah.
Like, or there was one of him like smacking her butt
Yeah.
in her ovulatory phase. She's like, get over here. And otherwise she like chases
Yeah.
him like with a
100%.
knife.
Yeah.
But so like think about let's start with your ovulatory window, that part
Uh-huh.
where you're like most beautiful and your body's gearing up to release that egg. That's like summer,
Mm.
right? And when you think about how do you act in summer, you're like, I can be out all day. I feel like $1,000,000. This is the best.
I'm a
Like
tan.
I'm tan, I'm beautiful, like I
Oh,
have so
yeah.
much energy, like
Yeah.
everything is good. You can do anything in summer.
So good.
Especially in California, you're like, there's no hold barred. But
Yeah.
some people are like, summer, I'm inside all day. But so like summer is like this beautiful, radiant
Oof.
time, right?
Love
That's
it.
that phase. Then we head into fall, right? The egg has been released, and now like the leaves are starting to change.
Uh-huh.
Things are feeling a little different, right? They start to fall. We're in like that luteal phase now, and then the trees are completely stripped, and we're in winter.
Yeah.
It might be cold, it's snowy, and what do you want to do? You want to
Mm.
be bundled up inside.
Yep.
You want to have your chili.
Yes.
You want to like think about your life. Like you get all introspective.
So when you're on your period, you need to be like
You need to go
introspective,
journal.
reflective, journal.
Go journal about the last
Eat
month.
some soup. We had some amazing crab soup last night, didn't
So
we?
good. So much crap. So
Yeah.
much crap. Best time to you're so big on journaling.
I am.
Like that's the best time to do your bigger picture
Cool.
check-ins.
Oh, so cool.
Right? Don't just journal about that day, but like let's look back on the last month.
Mm.
What do we want to do differently? How are things going? Like what's our intention going to be as we head into next month? Like
Yeah.
how do I feel about this year so far? It's a great time to like
Cool.
really dive into that.
Yeah.
And then after winter, like the snow melts and the first little like sprouts start coming up, right? It's springtime.
Mm.
That energy is coming back. That winter was your period.
Yeah.
Now we're heading back into that follicular phase. There's going to be new growth and new
Wow.
egg that is going to be like grown and released.
Yeah. And so you
Um,
feel, how do you feel?
This is like that new
Inside.
beginning, right? After your period, you're like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, okay."
Yeah.
Right? You kind of probably like
Like
hunker
fresh
down.
start. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't
Yeah.
it feel like a fresh start?
Totally. I'm like, hallelujah.
Yeah. Your like capacity for cardio is pretty darn good there.
Okay, cool.
And
Wow. That's
yeah.
crazy to think about. Like
Yeah.
you could almost, so I usually think about my workouts like within a week,
Yeah.
the average of a week. So I'm like, how much cardio, how much weightlifting, how much whatever within the week. But what you're saying is you could average it in the month.
so this is something I've like shifted my view on this
Oh,
actually.
tell me.
Because you can cycle sync your workouts.
Uh-huh.
Okay. This is what I used to teach, like pretty much exclusively,
Yeah.
which is like ebb with the flow. But you do run the risk of undertraining. If you follow it to a
Oh,
T
wow.
and you end up only
I'm
walking during your
surprised that
period,
you're saying that.
well,
I
because
love it.
it's a huge concern. It's a
Mm,
crisis for women to be undermuscled, right? That
wow.
is a really dangerous thing as you head into your 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Your muscle matters the most. Like you need to build as much as you can before the age of like 35,
Whoa.
right? Because then it starts to decline, and then the impact that it has and how much of our health issues and of the risks of old age come from being undermuscled,
Whoa.
right? Not just the balance of muscle versus visceral fat,
Uh-huh.
but also like the risk of injury,
Yes.
right? Falling, not being able to stand up on your own, right?
Mm,
Your strength, you need to care about that the most. And so much of feminine health is start looking forward.
wow.
Like out of generosity. It is not
Mm,
selfish for you to care about your health, and it's not going to like hurt your business if you
mm,
like pull back a little bit and think like, where
mm,
will this lead me? If I keep up this pace, where will this lead me for 5 years, 10 years, 50 years?
mm,
Because I don't know about you, but I want to be able to stand up on my own when I'm 80.
mm.
You know, like think about the impact that it has on your family
Well,
when you can't.
and you know, like the fear, the fear of falling.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how the fear of falling kills people more than actually falling.
Yeah.
Because people get older, they know that falling is like
Risky.
it's the biggest thing that puts them in the hospital, and a lot of times they don't leave the hospital. So they're scared of falling, so they're scared of moving. And when they're scared of moving, they lose muscle, which is the very thing that makes them fall.
Yeah.
So
and
it's the
brain.
fear of falling, not actually falling. And so it's like the more that you think ahead and the more that you move, the more confident you are to move and recover from the fall, even if you do fall,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And like, wouldn't you rather, like a lot of women are, you love the gym, but a lot of women are like afraid of the gym.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Or like, I don't understand, I don't know what to do. I feel stupid. And like the one thing about high achieving women and entrepreneurs, we don't like to feel stupid.
No,
So it's
we
like, I'd
don't.
rather not do it than feel dumb.
Totally.
But like, wouldn't you rather go through the hard, go through the feeling
Totally.
dumb when you're 30 than having to like pick up your first dumbbell when you're 65, 70?
Totally.
You know, like think ahead a little bit. And it's like, well, would I
Totally.
rather learn this now or later? Also, the worst time to learn something is when you need it.
Oh, yeah. I talk
The
about that.
worst time. Like
It's like
something,
panicky.
it is panicky.
Yeah.
Like the two best examples are birth and grocery shopping, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Like a lot of women are like afraid of birth, right?
Yeah.
Or like they've heard really like horror stories.
Yeah.
And so then if they only start learning about birth when they're pregnant, now it's real. Now it's like threatening. This is coming down the pipe. It feels like a train coming down the tracks and you're standing on it. It's like
Yeah.
something that's already happening to me.
Wow.
Right? So the way that your brain perceives it is very, very different from if you're like, hey, in total freedom and out of curiosity, I just want to learn this.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not a concern for me right now, so I'd rather just learn it while I can. With the grocery store, it's like the worst time to like learn how to read labels and what your macros should be is when you're starving and like standing in the grocery store. You're
Yeah.
gonna flip that thing around and be like, I don't know. I'm so hungry. It's been a long day. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna grab whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, do yourself the honor
Yeah.
and like have the compassion of knowing like, hey, I learn best when I'm at peace.
Ooh.
And I
so
like,
good.
I like deserve to learn things out of freedom rather than out of panic.
And you know, you have said to me the difference between the heart of solving a problem
Yeah.
versus solving a mystery.
Yeah.
And solving a problem kind of feels panicky, and solving a mystery feels
Exciting. Yeah.
curiosity, and almost like by choice,
Yeah.
not by threat.
Yes. Not by force.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And the key is ahead of time to make it, because you can take your time when it's like a puzzle. You come to it and then you walk away.
Yeah.
And then you come to it and then you walk away. You come to it and then you walk away. And there's a puzzle that'll sit on someone's kitchen counter for a year because it's just a process of solving the mystery.
Yeah.
Not because you have to, because you desire to.
Yeah. And what really bridges that gap, if we think about like the problem mentality,
Yeah.
is there is a solution.
Yeah.
And if there's not, I'm going to make one up.
Mm.
Right? Can I bring up communism?
Pl-
Okay. So
Please do.
when we think about that, what we have seen historically speaking
Yeah.
is that man's solution,
Wow.
we come up with some really bad solutions.
That's right.
And the problem with seeing people like problems is that you stop loving them.
Okay,
like-
say that again.
The problem with seeing people as a problem is that you stop loving them. They are no longer a person to be loved. They are a problem to be solved. And how many women are walking around like that? I'm just a problem to be solved. I just need to fix this. I just need to do it. And you're taking a sledgehammer when this is like, you're a daughter to be loved. Like you should be dealt with tenderness. Like you need compassion. You need time. Like good things take time. Like healing and like this garden analogy of like the way that you tend to a flower and that you
Yes.
prune things, and that there's, you use big shears for like big limbs, but there's like small little scissors or their
Yes.
fingers. Like vine growers, they will have to go in sometimes with their hands to
Wow.
remove certain things. And that's the same like tenderness that like the feminine heart deserves. And so how do we, if someone's listening to that and they're like, yeah, I do see myself as a problem and I'm frustrated, and that's
Yeah.
where we have that war piece. Then on the other hand, we have this mystery that it's like, one, I'm curious now. And you always talk about curiosity, like get curious about people's problems, get curious about your own body, get curious about your health. And you're going to have that, like, I call it like my Nancy Drew hat. Like I would read my Nancy Drew books as a kid and be like,
Yes.
I can't stop, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you just want to keep going. There's like an excitement in it. And there's also sometimes you're okay with things being a mystery. Like when we talk about the mystery of faith, like there's
Yes.
some things about God that on this side of heaven, we're never going to understand.
That's right.
And you're like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like he is mysterious. He is
Yeah.
big. And what bridges that gap
Yeah.
is reverence.
Talk about reverence.
Right? Like reverence and this like honor for what is like holy and good. You like are made good by a good God. Like you are a sacred being.
Wow.
Right? Like C.S. Lewis talks about how you've never met a mere mortal. Every single person you've encountered is either an immortal horror or an everlasting splendor. Right? They're either going to be hell or heaven, this like splendorous, saintly, beautiful sight, or this horror that we wouldn't even want to look at. And so like the honor and love that you owe the people around you, like loving your neighbor as you love yourself, like we're assuming that you love yourself. We're assuming that you would eat, so you should feed the people next to you. We're assuming that you would clothe yourself, so you should be giving clothes to the poor. Like there's this assumption that you're taking care of yourself. For a lot of women, I think that assumption has been lost
100%.
in like putting ourselves, it's like more honorable to put ourselves last.
Yeah.
When that's actually one of the most detrimental things that you could do to your family.
Yeah. I mean, if the woman isn't tight, the family falls apart.
It completely falls apart. Think about mom having a cold.
Oh yeah. Oh.
What happens in the home?
But it's a cold.
Yeah.
And it's a spirit thing.
Yeah.
Like when the mom has any off in her spirit,
Yeah.
I can sense it before I even come downstairs.
Yep.
I can sense the tone, right?
You set the tone. Yeah. You are the heart of your home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what's cool that I've been hearing from you is, yes, it's like health, all of that good stuff, but it's also you like managing your spirit with your health. Like your health kind of is like the foundation of your like not being burned out, not being easily irritated, not crumbling when something goes off. And even like translating that to business, you know, I see all the time women who will post on, I've never seen a man do this, by the way. Post. Have you ever seen a man
You're so right.
Post, hey everyone, I need to take a break. I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
If you don't see me on Instagram for a few months, that's where I'll be.
Text me. This is my number.
Text me my number. Like, you know, I haven't gone anywhere. I just need to recharge.
Yeah.
Never seen a man do that.
I don't know when I'll be back.
I don't know when I'll be back.
Whoa.
And
yeah,
it's fine, you know, and women do that with the sake of like wanting to be transparent and being authentic, which I love. But the risk of that is a little bit you making your business about you, you making your platform about you. And in my opinion, if you need to take a break, just take a break. Don't talk about it. Like just do it. And then like you want people to know you as the person that like serves people in a very specific way, not the one that's emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And not that women don't need to be emotional by any means, but when you understand, freaking understand, when you understand yourself and you're like, oh, I'm not crazy.
No.
I just understand and I can ride the wave of the rhythm.
It's also the perfect
and manage
example
it.
Of like, listen to your body whisper so it doesn't have to scream.
So good. Yes.
Okay. And what gets measured gets managed.
That's so good.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, like your reputation's on the line here. Women with a business. Yeah. And that is the most important thing for your business.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't want to be told that I have to like pull my foot off the gas. And I'm like, then just learn how to do it right and in a way that works for you.
So good.
Which is also like, for high achievers, you have a high capacity of function. You can push yourself and you can input and output to the highest degree, probably in our society, right? As an entrepreneur. Great. Can you just match that? Can we just match that with like equal levels of rest, nourishment, pausing when you need to, like getting your testing done? Like, can we just even that? Otherwise, we have the scales that are completely tipped. And then things will collapse. And you're going to experience the consequences.
Yes.
If we just even it back out, you're like, if I'm going to perform at this capacity, I'm like, amazing. Keep it up,
Yes.
Macy. Like, let's just match things with honoring your needs.
Yes. And this testing thing, you asked
Yeah.
me at dinner last night, when's the last time like you've been tested? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like
Yeah,
when
got your blood work done.
when
Yeah.
I had my baby, like I don't, and you're like, oh, you can do that, but I would have to pay for that, right? I have to pay to get my tested if I don't go through like a professional. Is that correct?
Yeah, no matter what, you're going to pay for it. Yeah.
Okay. So and I didn't realize that.
Then you can order your own testing.
that you can order your own testing and you pay for it, but like I don't know how to read it.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So when you are paying a professional like you like pay for the testing. You do. I'm paying you. You pay for the testing, and then I'm also paying for your professional opinion and advice based on that testing. And then your professional opinion will get more tests, and you'll pay for those tests based on what you see. I did not realize that.
Oh.
I had no idea.
Like having a lab bank is what we call it.
Oh yeah, I didn't understand how that works. Like,
Yeah.
and the thing is you think healthcare is like, your health insurance pays
Yeah.
for it or whatever, but
Yeah.
like you are paying in lots of different ways, either, healthcare, sick care system, you're paying in health, you're paying in your reputation, you're paying in your family falling apart, you're paying in your family memories being tainted with the culture of don't talk to mom, like mom's on edge, like,
Yeah.
oh, here she comes, like
She's having a bad day today.
she's
Yeah.
having a bad day today, she's
Yeah.
stressed out. Like you're paying with your children's childhood, like growing up with the thought and the belief that their mom is unpredictable.
Okay, how about
And I'm sorry, but that is uncool.
unacceptable?
Unacceptable.
One.
Genuinely.
Two, talk about how an entrepreneur's mind
Yeah.
is so attuned to looking for an ROI.
Yeah.
Okay. You know that there's a return on investment.
Yeah.
When you are going through your healthcare, have you ever had the situation where you have to beg to get certain blood work and they still can say no?
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Like, talk about not being told what to do. I'm like, if I really want to see a full panel of my blood work, I best be able to see it. And that's like the joy of getting to like work with clients one-on-one and doing things like customized for them.
Yeah.
Is like if someone comes and they're like, Flo, I don't know what you think, but I like desperately want this one test.
Yeah.
And I'm like, honestly, I'll give you my professional opinion if it would be like completely necessary, but if it would bring you massive peace of mind to see that, absolutely we can pull that.
So good.
Absolutely. So it's like you're already paying
Yeah.
however many hundreds of dollars for healthcare insurance
Yeah.
every single month, and then you're getting denied.
Yeah.
Or like you're taking months and months and months to get like the treatment or the specialist that you need.
Wow.
Like getting back in the driver's seat, like I believe that every entrepreneur should have a custom professional that can work with them.
Yes.
Because like you don't have time to be wasting. You have a mission. You have a
Yes.
family that needs you and depends on you.
Come on.
So like you deserve better. You deserve better than what's being offered to you.
Oh my gosh, can you It's so good. Okay, I know we're going like so late. But I really want to wrap this up with one more visual.
Yeah.
Of your routines. There's this idea of if someone were following you around with a camera, like does your life represent what you believe? Which I really like that. But you gave me a totally different perspective that I will never not think about. And I need you to share it with people.
Awesome. Okay. A lot of my clients are Catholic.
Yeah, it's great.
So,
it's still a beautiful
yeah.
visual.
So
yeah. So talk to everyone as if they're not Catholic.
Yeah.
Help them understand.
Jesus' mom.
Yeah.
Cool gal. Right?
You-
Super cool that she got to be chosen to bring Jesus into the world.
Yeah.
A huge
And
deal.
for Catholics, Mary is a huge deal.
We love her.
Yeah.
We love our theme is like if Jesus loved her that much, then like we love her too. Like we just love her. We don't worship her. We love her.
Yeah.
Because that's his mom. And
Yeah.
so
So
like
good.
think about her or someone that you really admire,
Mhm.
right? If it was like you,
Yeah.
anyone watching this and knows you,
Uh-huh.
I want you to imagine one morning you wake up and Mary is standing at the side of your bed. She goes, "Hey, love you so much. I'm just going to join you for the day. Anything that you do, I'm going to do. Please don't change anything for me. Like, I just want to keep the same pacing with you." And so I want you to imagine that whatever you do, she does. Whatever you don't do, she doesn't do. When you eat, she eats. When you rest, she rests. When you scroll on TikTok for an hour, you're handing her, Mary, this is what we do actually. First thing in the morning, we scroll for an hour on TikTok and dread getting out of bed. We snooze 5 times. And then we grab our coffee and we run out the door. We like throw our hair into a bun. We didn't get ready. We didn't brush our teeth either.
Yeah.
And now we're going to work for 6 hours straight. We're not going to eat. We're just going to keep going. Then we're going to be ravenous. We're just going to go to the drive-thru. Like, does that sound good? Like, you would never, like,
Yeah.
would you be like abusing her, you
Yeah.
know, if you did
Poor
that?
Mary.
Yeah, poor thing,
Yeah.
right?
And you're like, I don't want your brain filling with those TikToks, Mary.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. How embarrassing.
Think about the things that you've seen on there. You'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, like she can't, but it's like, offer yourself the
Yeah.
same dignity.
Yeah.
And the things that you think that people can't tell, like if that's your morning routine, if I just describe something that sounds like so you and you're like, Flo, how did you know? One, you're not alone. It's because a lot of women live like that, and it's like become an autopilot of our culture. But you think that people can't tell. Like you think that you're showing up into your business and people don't know how much you're scrolling, or people don't know how much time you're wasting, or that you like don't eat because you hate yourself, or you're like not working out because you're just embarrassed of your own body and you can't even show up at the gym. Like the good news is that like being a woman of integrity, any good that you do multiplies, even behind closed doors. And like, there are things that you do that you will not even be rewarded for on this side of heaven. But I promise you, like, it builds up in your soul. It like makes you better. It makes you someone that people want to be around. And like, don't you want that? Don't you want to live a life worthy of imitation? So that if someone was like, oh, I forgot to tell you, we hid cameras in your room. That'd be so scary. But like, we hid cameras in your room and we've been recording you all week. And we're actually going to put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Would you be like, amazing?
Yeah.
I actually think that could be really encouraging and hopeful for people to see like what a life well lived can look like. It's all about rediscovering the art of living well.
So
like,
I'm gonna go get an Oura ring immediately,
just to start getting some data.
and I'm just gonna start the process.
Yeah.
And I will be working with you. I don't know how exactly, but you have changed. I have never felt so changed in a single day than I have with you. Genuinely.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Can we give 3 little, if someone's listening to this
Please.
and they're like, let's go.
Yeah.
You just brought up the Oura ring. Actually a great start.
Yeah.
If you can start, I believe this, it's a hill I'll die on. Every single woman should know how to track her cycle.
Yeah.
You need to know how to read your own body and your size. The Oura ring has done a great job of making it simple.
Yeah.
Like it's just a visual. So like start getting curious about your body again.
Yeah.
Second, can you just like write out your morning and evening routine?
Yeah. Because you said
Just
the
write it
first
out.
hour and the last hour.
Oh, I believe that the first and last hour of your day have the potential to be 2 of like the holiest, most beautiful and sacred hours of your day.
Wow.
Like it should be. If you're waking up and scrolling on TikTok for an hour, we've kind of lost that hour. But like and we would think about scripture and like the Psalms and like, Lord, we're like when the sun rises, like I'm going to greet you and I'm going to thank you. Like, are you doing that when you rise? It's a miracle that you woke up again today. And also you're not guaranteed that you're going to wake up tomorrow. So that first and last hour, you might want to check in with the good Lord and be like, what's up? Yeah. So that first and last hour, go ahead and write out your morning and evening routine. Just write it in a journal and think about, is this something I'm proud of? And if I had to change one thing, what would it be? Start there. Like we don't even need to work together for you to start doing the work.
Yeah.
And then the third thing would be, you do not run off of air. You're not a plant. If God wanted you to photosynthesize, he would have designed you that way. I promise you. He decided that we needed to be eating food regularly throughout the day. So go ahead and make sure, and as high achieving entrepreneurs, I know that your work can get so engaging that you don't want to, or like you don't even, you notice the passage of time. Go ahead and block out lunch in your calendar.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Just put a time block in your decal and put lunch, non-negotiable break. I have to get up off of my desk. I have to go eat, and I should probably go touch grass. 3 great places to start.
So good, Flo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the word. Okay, I almost just tell you what.
We didn't talk about like why selling has made this. Did you want to talk about it? No, we don't have time.
It
Next
just,
time.
I mean,
Okay.
you can talk about selling if you want to.
Yeah.
Really quickly, just kind of talk about. We were going to mention just your ability to.
Do you want to ask me why? How like something of like you like are so confident about this message and like sharing that like what? Okay, yeah.
Okay. So, you're obviously so confident and you're so well spoken. I think there's a lot of people that have so much depth of knowledge, but it's not coming out the way it's coming out of you right now. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like you have such depth, but your ability to put it together for people that it's like making our brain spin is unreal.
Yeah. I don't think I felt like this before I joined your program.
Really?
I think I knew that I like could say things and I definitely felt like a mission on my heart.
Yeah.
But there is an art to communicating things in a way that people want to listen to. And that's ultimately what selling is.
Yeah.
Selling is like, just like knowing how to present the present. You always say like wrapping it up nice so that someone would even want to open it. If I hand you like a bag of stinky garbage and I'm like, I see, I got this for you. You'd be like, okay, what? And that's what it sounds like when you don't know your message, when you don't know how to sell, when you're like talking about yourself, when you're like talking about your offer too much, like when you're insecure about it. But like, I really like knowing how to sell has been the foundation of my business.
Wow.
And the reason that I think my clients get such good results is because I can sell them on every single step in the process. Because changing your health is not a one and done thing.
Yeah.
There's like little steps along the way that you need to make, and shifts in behavior. Like there's real changes that you're going to have to make.
Yeah.
And when you believe like what is in it for you, when you can see like, oh, like this is so valuable, I can't not, then it's exciting. It's back to that mystery piece again. So like selling and knowing how to sell is why I'm able to do what I do. And like women can literally say that it changed the trajectory of their life, which is like to hear someone say that to you.
You're like, my job here is done. Like I've done my,
it's the most like
fulfilling.
It is like so powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anyone could say that if I didn't know how to tell them what I need to tell them, which is like the power of sales.
Wow. Well, thank you for being a beautiful representation of being a sales girl and knowing how to sell so gently and so femininely. And you have set me off on a track. I'm ordering Catholic books about the privilege of being a woman. And, you know, I told you earlier, I'm like, I know so much about sales, but I really haven't studied the girl part, sales girl. Yeah. And I'm so excited to study it and learn so much more from you. And thank you for sharing. So tell the people where they can find you. And you'll have consistent events where people can come and learn from you as well. So we'll put all those links in the description so that people can come back to it, you know, whenever it works for them. But tell them your Instagram, tell them about like your challenge and all the stuff, your podcast.
Yeah. 3 easiest places. 1, Instagram at the Catholic Nutritionist.
Yep.
On there, you'll find the podcast, or you can look it up on Spotify and Apple, Made Good, for my listening girlies. And then thecatholicnutritionist.com. And that's where you'll find the challenge. The challenge will rearrange your entire brain.
Oh my gosh.
And how you're seeing your health. So come on in.
So we'll link it all below. Flo, thank you for taking the time to just like do the work that so many women don't even know is possible to do, and for communicating. I genuinely am like, this is why I'm like Persuade for Good. Like, thank you for your service, because this is a job that's not easy to do, to persuade women to think about their period. It's like, what? No, it's the last thing I want to think about. But this is why like salespeople are so critical to women thriving and people thriving, and you are the epitome of persuading for good. Wow. So thank you.
Couldn't have done, none of this would exist without y'all. So I want to thank you for being the best coaches.
Love you, Flo.
Love you.
Oh my God. What is happening? Is she not so unreal?